Welcome to Horror Makes Us Happy, the podcast where we ask the question, what is it about horror that makes us happy? Your hosts are Steve Becker and myself, Chris Whitman, and you can find out more about our website, horrormakesushappy.com. It's a very difficult URL to remember. Before we get started, this is the trigger warning. We're going to be talking about messed up stuff, but we will be talking about horror movies, horror culture, which could involve anything from murder, rape, suicide, child abuse. Just generally disturbing topics are a possibility on this podcast. So if that's not your cup of tea.
So if you don't like it, yeet out.
Yeet. Or if I may borrow a term that I actually is one of the few that I prefer from the current generation, yeet.
Yeet yourself?
Yes, yeet yourself out of this podcast. And on that note, today we have the company of Rebecca Rineheart, actress known for such works as Carousel II, Frightvision, and Sharks of the Corn.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Is there anything you'd like to plug before we get into the meat of the interview?
Sure. I didn't realize. Usually this is an end of the show kind of thing, but
yeah, we do it at the beginning and the end.
Right. So I'm in all kinds of crazy stuff. I mentioned those three because I can tell you where to get them. Frightvision, Sharks of the Corner on Prime, and Frightvision's on Tubi as well. Carousel II's available through Silver Spotlight Films. I am also a director. I directed a movie called The Embalmers, which if you go to the Facebook group, which is just The Embalmers, you could join that, find out all about that. And I am now working on my next movie that I'm directing called Tin Roof, which is just starting to ramp up. It was written by Rob Mello from Happy Death Day. Okay. And I'm directing, and we have some really cool stuff. And it's going to be a camp slasher for a mature audience.
Okay. I mean,
yes.
Okay.
So we have
all for a mature audience?
No, I mean, so I'm I guess we'll just get into this. I'm a huge camp slasher fan. That's just my thing. Like, you can give me the crappiest camp slasher movie from 1983 and I'll watch that over, any of the Lord of the Rings any day. And so when we were done with The Embalmers, Rob was like, okay, so what's next? I mean, literally we wrapped like the hour before, and then he asked me and I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to do another movie, it's going to be a camp slasher.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, but my main thing was I get sick of seeing these spring breakers on daddy's dime, renting some elaborate cabin, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I want it to be middle-aged people. My exact words were, I want people with beer guts, mortgages, children, and problems to be my protagonists. I wanted it to be for middle-aged people. And so I had another proviso in there too that's a little bit of a spoiler. But so we're making it a little more relatable for our age group. Okay.
Yeah, I am down. Being a quadragenarian? Yes.
Is that what we are? I don't know. Don't say that.
It makes it sound fancy,
No, it makes it sound old.
Yeah, it does.
Sorry.
You didn't say octa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but still, that's what you hear. So, So we're on Facebook too, so you can follow us, and we are ramping up our Indiegogo. We've got some cool stuff coming out.
Cool.
For that,
we'll put together a bio for you, and we can link to whatever you want.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, enough about me.
Okay. So the idea here is that we're going to be asking 3 sets of questions covering your childhood, teenage years, and adulthood to find out what it is about horror that you personally like. The idea being that if we come at it from these different directions, sometimes it triggers memories that you'd forgotten. But that said, if there's anything that you don't want to talk about, just say pass and we'll move on.
Okay.
But starting with childhood, what are some of your earliest memories of scary things?
Okay. Yeah, and you guys will have to shut me up because this is the kind of stuff I'll talk about all night. So
unfortunately, we don't have anybody scheduled after this call, so we got that out of the way.
All right. So I guess I'll just start with, this is chronologically my first memory of horror. I was walking past the TV in our family room, and this is when, TVs were on all the time, and commercials were always on, and they weren't really censored back then. You could watch, trailers for horror movies were, on the middle of Entertainment Tonight, and they were awesome. And I remember walking by the TV and, hearing, "Are you afraid of the dark?" And, I remember, a girl walking up steps and, a hand coming through, a slatted wall and grabbing her ankle. And I could never find it. So then when the internet came around, of course, then I'm Googling and everything else. And I still can't figure out what this movie is. It's different things come up, but it's no, that's not it. No, that's not it.
Was it People Under the Stairs?
No.
Okay.
So I was at the drive-in We are fortunate in Indiana, in Shelbyville, Indiana. We have a drive-in that is very dedicated to horror, independent horror. It's actually where we did the Embalmers premiere.
Awesome.
They have a lot of nights where they play horror movies, and they'll play like old trailers, little commercials. And I was just sitting there between movies, and I hear, "Are you afraid of the dark?" And I was like, "Holy shit!"
That's the one. That's the one.
Yes. And it ended up being the movie Silent Scream, which is an all right movie. It's not the greatest movie. The trailer's still cool. Because then I was like, oh my God, like I had just found this like massive like memory. And I went back to look, and it came out in the States in November of 1979. So I would have been 3 years old. And prior to that, my earliest memory was May of 1980. So my earliest memory is a horror movie, damn it.
Nice.
Yeah. So I can pinpoint it back to that. Aside from that, I didn't watch a lot of horror movies. I mean, we didn't even have cable till I was probably like 9 or 10. So, we didn't have a VCR, anything like that. I was a scaredy cat. I was afraid of like absolutely everything horror until Michael Jackson's Thriller, which you hear so many people our age say that.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I was scared until it was like somebody I really loved, and it made it fun. But my other early memory that really, I don't think I realized it at the time, but it really sat with me as I've grown older, is Entertainment Tonight. I just mentioned that. I remember when American Werewolf in London was being made, and Entertainment Tonight had a little featurette about, Rick Baker and how they're doing, how they were doing the transformation. I had a huge crush on David Naughton for whatever reason. And I saw it, and I was really intrigued. I'm like, well, I think that was my first thing of like, it can't be that scary if it's David Naughton. And it's kind of cool that they're doing this stuff. So I think those are probably two of my biggest trigger memories of when I really was first introduced to horror.
So the first three things that you've mentioned are this Silent Scream, American Werewolf in London, and Thriller. But for Silent Scream, obviously you didn't see the movie at that time, but something about that trailer stuck out to you. I'm guessing, did it scare you or excite you?
It was exciting. Like it was it's very dark. And so when I watch it now, I kind of see why I was drawn to it.
Did you want to expound on that?
No. I mean, no, it was kind of dark. It was foreboding. The voice was very deep, and the girl getting her ankle like grabbed, something about that was just really creepy. And I don't know.
I'm trying to picture it. Was the voice kind of like that old school Grindhouse voice? Like, are you afraid of the dark?
Yeah.
With the stinger in the background?
Very monotone dude. Yeah. Very monotone voice, very deep. Just some very low music in the background, American Werewolf in London, I did not watch that till many years later as well.
But you had seen the Michael Jackson Thriller video at a young age? Yes.
So I saw that, and I had the poster on my wall. Which was a huge step for me. Really huge step, man, to have those zombies in my wall.
Right?
But as far as the first horror movie, obviously I've gone through these before. So I, with other podcasts and just on my own, the first horror movie that I remember watching, and this is going to sound terrible, it's going to make some adults sound like they were very irresponsible. And they were. But my aunt had 2 VCRs, and she used to do the illegal thing of like she'd rent a movie and tape it.
I have never done nor witnessed that or helped a family member do that whatsoever.
Right.
I don't
there
know.
Was a
you're
time
a criminal.
You thought police were going to bust in your door if you recorded a videotape back then.
That's why they had the FBI thing on the start of every video.
Yeah, there was a time that was actually pretty scary.
You mean the thing I can't skip over? Yeah.
So she had like rented a million movies, had like this notebook with like numbered tapes, and then it said like what tapes were penciled in, what movies were on what tapes and everything.
Holy shit, your mom was the godfather of bootleg tapes.
Well, this was my aunt, but she was like, she was like the torrenter of now. So
she was the Chris of now.
I had two older sisters. One is 6 years older, one is 14 years older. And we went out to my aunt's house. She had a pool. She was the cool aunt. My sisters got to drink, and we spent all day swimming. And then, she's got the book, and, like, here, you guys want to watch movies and blah, blah, blah. And I'm 5. And the first one that my family picked, we were talking about dumb movies earlier off air. We were talking about dumb comedies. The first one they picked was the Kentucky Fried movie. Strangely enough, directed by John Landis, but it's all like boobs and like sex jokes and everything else. Yep. And it's
Show me your nuts.
still one of my favorite movies. And but then the second one was I Spit on Your Grave.
Mm-hmm.
And I was young. I was like 5. I didn't know what sex was, so I sure as hell didn't know what rape was.
Right.
And I always say, like, I can't believe they had me in the room while this movie was on. But I am a huge rape revenge fan. And I point back to this movie because when I was that age, every woman I knew was just kind of a doormat. You know, you could either be a secretary or a mom, or, you know, you just couldn't really do a whole lot. I mean, the fact that this woman was a writer was, you know, kind of odd to me. Like, she's a writer and she's going to this house by herself. And it was a little weird to me. And so there's a little empowerment there. But like, all I saw was these boys hurt her. And she didn't go run to mom or a teacher or whatever. She took care of it herself. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of a template for like the way I've lived my life and a lot of the movies that I like. And that's the story I always tell when people are like, how can you like rape revenge? It's like, it's not about the rape. It's about breaking
the revenge,
breaking
right? Like,
this person
focus
down.
on the important part. I don't know. What do you like? Just rape movies? No, rape revenge.
Right. And the idea that, so if somebody gets murdered, obviously they can't avenge their own death unless you get supernatural. Yeah. You know, if somebody gets like completely beaten up and maimed and they're in the hospital for months upon months, that, you know, they can't, you know, then that you have to have a montage of them learning karate and all that crap. But like rape revenge is the thing where the person gets broken down and hurt and brutally assaulted, but they still physically can rise up, like unless they've gotten their legs broken or something like that. And that's what I like is there's an immediate gratification. Like the girl can just like spend a couple days just nursing her wounds and, you know, seething, and then just get up and be like, I'm going to go get these motherfuckers.
Instant gratifications that way.
Right, exactly.
I think there's actually a movie that combines rape revenge and resurrection. I want to say Savaged. A woman gets raped and then she's possessed by a Native American spirit that gives her supernatural powers.
I don't know if that's the name of it, but yeah, I know what movie you're talking about.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, so that was you said like 5 or 6 years old. That is pretty young for that.
Right?
Yeah, and like I said, they were drinking, and my oldest sister was driving and drinking, driving me home. But that's okay. Whatever. I'm here, and I got a good story.
You're right. Well, those are definitely some good things to start off with. Did you participate in Halloween as a kid?
Yeah, I never really liked Halloween when I was a kid.
No.
I have social anxiety anyway, and I was very much. I was a dork. I didn't fit in with most people. I certainly didn't want to knock on strangers' doors. But, you know, it was just the norm. So, yeah, I mean, I would dress up for the school party, and then I would reluctantly go trick-or-treating. But it was just never really, like, anything that I cared about. And still to this day, I kind of hate Halloween. Okay? Hear me out.
No.
Because
it's been good talking to you. Haven't you?
No. Hear me out. I kind of hate Halloween because this is really sacrilegious sounding, but I feel in October how really hardcore real Christians must feel in December. Like all of a sudden in December, everybody loves Jesus. Everybody's holier than thou. And they're giving to charities and working at soup kitchens and doing all this Christ-like stuff. You know, where they're like, hey, dude, where are you in freaking August? Right? You know, and then the other 11 months out of the year, they're considered to be freaks. And that's the way I feel like horror fans are. October, all the posers come around. Ooh, I like scary movies. I like to be scared. And then like in like March, they're like, why are you watching that? Why are you wearing those shoes that have blood splatter on them? So it kind of sours it for me because I'm like, okay, you know what? I don't need a month or a day to celebrate this shit. I'm 12 months out of the year, baby.
24/7, 365, bitch.
That's right.
Halloween is every day. So saith Al Jorgensen.
I'm not wearing a costume. This is my costume.
Ah.
Exactly. I'm like, yeah, I don't need October to come around to wear my Jason Voorhees shoes or, you know, or like watch a horror movie. Like I don't need a special occasion. Special occasion. It's Monday and today sucked and I'm going to watch a horror movie.
Did you have any really scary dreams as a child?
You know, I don't really remember having scary dreams. I'm sure I did because, like I said, I was a scaredy cat. I do remember the miniseries V my family was watching that, and I was getting ready to go to bed, and I walked in when I think it was Charles. He had died and got revealed. One of them got revealed as the lizard person, and they spin a chair around, and he was there. I walked in just at that moment. And I do remember I had trouble sleeping. I told my mom, I'm like, Mom, I can't, whatever. She's like, oh, just hide under the blankets. But I go, but what if he's under the blankets? Like, I was even smart back then, right?
Steve, was it you that had that same exact experience as a kid?
Not that one. It was V, but not that scene.
No? Okay, different scene.
For me, it was the scene. It was the baby being born.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so no scary dreams, or how about what's the word I'm looking for? There's a phrase for this, but when you have repetitive dreams that keep coming back,
like recurring dreams.
Recurring. Thank you.
No. The only dreams, and it's only been since I've been an adult, I have anxiety-induced dreams, and they're always about real life stress. Like,
right.
Like, I'm trying to get to school to take my last exam to graduate college, and I can't seem to get there. That kind of stuff. Yeah, it's all very just like adulty, dumb kind of stuff.
Wake up clawing the air in a cold sweat. The property taxes!
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
All right, so no phobias or anything like that?
No, I mean, nothing. I had no trauma. I was very, had a very, very sugary life. I was
not every question is gonna hit. You just never know what's gonna hit, so you gotta
right. I mean, I grew up in a trailer. I was low class. I made straight A's. I was a dork. I loved to play with Barbies, and that was me. That was dream. I wore like thick glasses, and I was a dork till I was like in 7th grade. So there you go.
Your mom and your aunt and your 2 older sisters, were they horror fans, or was it just that they happened to pick that movie?
Well, my mom wasn't there. It was just my aunt and my sisters.
Okay.
They happened to pick that movie, I think, because it was just, those were like taboo. Mm-hmm. I mean, those are 2 taboo movies, like, ooh, we got to watch something rated R, something hardcore, something we would never see at home because, again, we had no cable, no VCR or anything. My oldest sister did contribute to my horror love, and she does not remember this at all. And she is not a horror fan. She can't say it. In fact, she'll be like, what's that one guy you like? And I'm like, Jason Voorhees. I was like, you were the one that I first watched it with. So when I was 8, my sister, again, she's much older than I was, she had a baby. And my mom needed somewhere for me to be during the summer while she worked. Pamela needed some help during the day. So I was going over there every day. It's like, nice little balance. And part 4 was getting ready to come out. And so the USA channel was like marathoning 1, 2, and 3. Like, just, they would play those 3 over and over, like cable TV tended to do. And so when my nephew would lay down for a nap, like Pamela and I would turn on USA, and it'd always inevitably be one of the first 3 Fridays, heavily edited. We'd sit there and play Boggle or Yahtzee or something, and that would be on. And that was where I first saw those movies, and that's I would like to think that's where I really started becoming a fan. But yeah, like, she doesn't remember that, and like so many other people that I'm sure have said this before, like, then it's like you start making friends, and you go to slumber parties, and you guys start watching these movies, and and everybody's like, ooh, cool. And then like there's like one point in time when you turn like 15 or 16 or something, and it's like, hey, do you guys want to watch Flesh Eating Mothers? No, we want to watch Pretty Woman. And then it's like everybody else has forgotten about horror, but it's like, wow, I didn't grow out of it, like everybody else, just, it's like a phase for everybody else. And for me, it wasn't. I mean, my sister's kind of into horror. She actually co-wrote The Embalmers with me. It's not super horror though. She vetoed most of the horror stuff. But she goes to conventions with me and stuff, and she's working as a producer now on some horror movies, but she's not like a huge fan.
Okay. So you had mentioned earlier being a big fan of camp slashers. Obviously, Friday the 13th is a camp slasher.
Well, yes.
What? Do you think that that's where your love of that really came from, or did it not really cement until later on?
I think that's where it started. So that was pretty early on. I probably didn't watch a whole lot more movies till I was maybe like 10, 11, like any movies like that per se. And then I think that's kind of the age when, you know, we started going to the video store on a Friday night when you have like a friend over and you get to pick a movie and that kind of thing.
As is tradition.
But yeah, so I yes, I think that's exactly where my template for camp slasher love came from.
Okay. But okay, so you said nobody else was a big horror fan.
Mm-mm. Still not.
No. Ew.
So you mentioned on I Spit on Your Grave, you mentioned it being, you know, being a rape revenge fan and feeling empowered. Did you feel like it that at that time watching that movie, or was it scary at the time? Like,
you know, I don't really remember. I'm sure I was scared. I'm sure I didn't pay 100% attention.
I mean, you said you were 5 at the time, so you obviously didn't know about the sexual aspect of it, so you couldn't really understand
I didn't
fully
understand.
the revenge.
Right. I didn't understand. All I understood was that they hurt her, they were bullying her, and they were hurting her, and she took care of it on her own. So, I mean, yeah, there was that. So I don't know that I was necessarily scared, or if I walked out feeling like I'm going to go put on my Wonder Woman underoos and, you know, run for president when I grow up. Like, I wasn't necessarily like that. It's just something that in retrospect, I can see that really made a mark on me.
well, I was also thinking, you know, seeing that with your aunt and your older sisters and maybe seeing how they reacted to it may have also given you some guidance on, like, this is how I should respond to this.
I honestly don't remember, even in retrospect, like in my mind's eye, I don't remember them watching it. Like they probably watched it, but I have a feeling they were probably drinking wine coolers and like playing cards or something. Like I only remember
more in the background.
I only remember my experience with it.
Okay. I guess let's jump over to teenage years then. What were some of the scary stories or books or movies that impacted you in your teenage years?
So teenage years, it was probably not until I would say like I was 12-ish before I started renting movies on my own.
Okay.
And I was very fortunate. So I live in a small town in Indiana. Not a whole lot going on. We had a few mom and pop video stores that always would have like the normal movies. But I was very fortunate that throughout my teenage years, there was one video store in town. The guy who owned it, he was very into horror, and it was an independent video store. It wasn't a box store or anything like that. And he would buy anything horror, sight unseen. And that was a bulk of what was on his shelves. I mean, he would have like all the normal movies too, but really, like when I think back, I walked in there and I was like, horror, you know, like that's where like Faces of Death was, and you know, that kind of stuff. And I started renting things based on the cover. And you look at the back, you're like, oh, that looks like a good kill. That looks like a good kill. I'm going to take this one. And as I was renting these movies, and again, I've had time to process, a few decades to process all this, but I would pick up movies, and there are some movies that I would rent over and over, like Flesh Eating Mothers. I mentioned that. I rented that so many stinking times. Sleepaway Camp 2, I rented it so many times. I probably could have bought the VHS at the time when VHSs were very expensive. But I didn't know the difference between a $10,000 budget movie and a $10 million budget movie. And I would rent some of the bloodiest, goriest, goofiest ones. And now when I look back, the ones I was really drawn to were more of the independent, low budget, a lot of shot on video, because that was the heyday, and that was where things were. That's where things were at. They weren't censored like Hollywood movies, and those were the ones I started renting. So yeah, so those two, I mentioned those two, and there were some mainstream ones that I watched too, like the Friday the 13th movie, Sleepaway Camp. Those were not mainstream. Those only have become mainstream in the last, I say, 10 years.
Yeah.
No one talked about those movies. And Felissa Rose came to the first convention I ever went to in like 2010. And she had this little table, and I couldn't even buy a Sleepaway Camp shirt. I made one. I got the iron-on thing where you put it in the printer. You get a picture and you put it in the printer, and I ironed it on and everything. And like I went up to her and you could tell she was just like not knowing what she was doing. Like she's just like, what the fuck am I doing here? And like up walks this girl at sleepaway camp. She's like, oh my God, you have a shirt. Oh my God, that's so cute. You know? And you know, you could tell she was just like, I came here. I didn't know that anybody ever watched this movie. You know, and now look at it. She's like the darling.
Yeah.
You know, but those movies they weren't financially successful or anything like that.
They're more of a cult following.
Cult following, and it took a while. I like to say I'm on the cusp of that.
Yeah.
But I did rent a lot of shot on video, like Tim Ritter's Truth or Dare.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to totally blank out the Apollonia Brothers stuff. So like Splatter Farm. Then another one that's actually like 16 millimeter lunch meat. I would rent all these just random ass movies that were just weird. Redneck Zombies, that was another favorite.
That's a good one.
So some of the ones that you mentioned here, let's start with the first two that sounded like they're big to you. Flesh Eating Mothers. What did you like about that one?
I don't know. It was like, it's a dumb movie. It's sort of dumb. It's still kind of creepy when the mothers actually like go nutso. They like unhinge their jaws and have all these teeth. It actually still looks pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know. That one had some really crazy dialogue too. It was cheesy. It was bad. And I think cheesy is another good word to put on what I like. I liked something that made me like roll my eyes and laugh too.
Campy.
Still
campy camp slashers, huh?
No.
What about, going back to Sleepaway Camp, so obviously that one is camp in the non-campy sense, literal camp.
I watched Sleepaway Camp probably a dozen times Sleepaway Camp 2, probably a dozen times before I ever rented Sleepaway Camp. I rented Sleepaway Camp 2, and it is, to me still, I cite that and Friday the 13th Part 2 as my favorite movies of all time.
Okay.
Sleepaway Camp 2 did what very few movies have done. And that is, they gave you good horror. They gave you good kills. They gave you characters that you cared about, either good or bad. They had, the cast and everything was like very, very believable. And, it was kind of that 80s thing of like, you've got like the jock and you got the dork, but not so overly at what didn't turn into The Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
But the humor in that is so spot on. I mean, there's just so many little things like where she grabs, like, she's trying to tell this one girl, listen, if you want to come back, you can come back. And, she goes to reach in the back and the girl goes, what are you going to do? Grab a gun? And then she pulls up and goes, no, a drill. And then just like starts drilling in the girl's head and blood starts spurting on her face. And she's got this look on her face like, ooh, the subtlety of the comedy is so great. And, and it's like, later we would start getting more parody type things that were just making the obvious joke. But that was just, I still love it to this day. It's a comfort movie for me. But yeah, then I ended up watching Sleepaway Camp many iterations later, and Sleepaway Camp 3, which is, it's okay. That's never one that I like go back to very often. But Sleepaway Camp 1, I really loved, but I already knew what the end was going to be. So, I mean, that didn't do anything for me. But I really liked the movie because it was a camp slasher, and this little mousy girl kind of is the one causing all the havoc, and so yeah.
Something about the mousy girl maybe being relatable protagonist.
Probably.
So I'm guessing same thing with Halloween. In your teenagers didn't really dress up there.
No.
Any reoccurring dreams or scary dreams in your teens?
No. I mean, I was getting more self-absorbed in my teens, to like early teens. I started, I had like the 1980s movie, stereotypical movie experience. I was chubby. I wore thick glasses. I had, bad hair. And like one summer, the summer between 6th and 7th grade, I just decided I wasn't going to be that way anymore. I lost a bunch of weight. I got contacts. I got my hair fixed, went back. People didn't know who I was. The guy who I had a crush on all through 6th grade, who didn't know I existed, all of a sudden had a crush on me. And I made cheerleading. Yeah, so you might as well put John Hughes in charge of my life at that point, right? So I had like this weird, very quick turnaround. And I pretty much spent like 7th, 8th grade, and also a little bit of 9th grade. 9th grade, I started getting a little Like, you know, like I still don't like the same things that other people like. Like, I really was into Twin Peaks in 9th grade. Like, I can name one other person who was into Twin Peaks who was like a teenager at the time. And so by the time I hit like 15, 16, I was done with all the cheerleading stuff. I was done with trying to make people happy.
You're like, okay, I was popular for a while. I'm done with that.
Yeah, I had it. I'm done.
Moving on next.
Yeah. So I've tended to be whoever I've wanted to be, like, and do whatever I wanted to do my whole life. So yeah, so I just kind of said, screw it. This is not where I'm at right now, and I'm going to do my own thing, and I'm going to watch what I want and hang out with who I want and all that jazz. So it was an odd time. It was a dark time.
Dark and rainy night. This one, I think I don't remember if I asked this for childhood or not, but did you have anything that happened in real life that actually scared you?
No, I mean, really, yeah, I've never had anything that wasn't just, kind of stupid. You know, I mean, I can't even, like, I'm sure I got scared. I mean, my sisters always try to scare me. I mean, that was just, I don't know if you know what this looks like, but the Queen album, News of the World, had like this big robot. He was like tromping through a city, and he had like people in his hands, and they had like blood hanging out of him. It used to scare me when I was a kid, and my sisters used to chase me around the trailer with that album when I was a kid.
Okay.
Yeah, they were sadistic, but like, as far as anything real, no. I mean, I lived through a couple tornadoes that didn't do any damage, that kind of thing. I didn't really have any kind of trauma, even as a teenager. I didn't really like live through anything bad.
I mean, it's not a bad thing.
No.
All right. And in the teenage years, you didn't have anybody that was a fan of horror?
No, I mean, I had,
was like friend or family?
Yeah, I mean, I had people that humored me.
But not a mutual fan?
Yeah, like there was nobody of my level, no. And in fact, all through college, it wasn't like that. It was not until I was a full-blown adult, the internet came around, like hardcore, before I ever met people that I really connected with in horror. And I think horror conventions too. 2010, I want to say, is the first year that a horror convention was here in Indy. And it was like, the first time I walked into one of those, I was like, oh my God, I'm not alone. Like, it was huge. Like,
I found my people.
God. Yes, exactly. Like, I mean, I had only found like little enclaves of people online before that. And
yeah, that is one huge change in the world now with the internet that people, younger people don't understand that, today they can go online and very quickly find a community of people like themselves. Whereas before the internet, you were just alone.
Yeah.
Good luck.
There was a lot of me like driving to Bloomington, which is the nearest college town, and renting movies, and then like going home and watching them in the middle of the night by myself. Like, it was definitely, movie watching definitely became a very personal thing. And it was no longer, I don't care if anybody else wants to watch this, I'm going to watch it. And I'm going to do it by myself.
Yeah.
So if I were to summarize the, childhood section, there was some excitement there, but also some, empowerment. And opposed to that, in the teenage years, it seems like the bigger emotion there is just fun and campiness. And then I was going to ask, did any of the spooky, exciting feeling or the empowerment also follow through into the teenage years? Was there some media that elicited those feelings? And then you kind of just said right there something about empowering. Oh, your decision to watch movies by yourself, whether they wanted to or not. That's kind of empowering.
That is, and that's really just who I am. Like, I'm going to go over here, and if anyone wants to follow me, that's fine. If you don't want to, I'm still going. Like, that's just kind of the way I am. I mean, it took a long time for me to get to that point. I mean, but yeah, there have been occasions where I've been maybe a little freaked out by a movie. Like The Exorcist. It's still kind of like, I still kind of go, ooh, every time like Reagan's head turns around. Or like when the director's cut came out and she had like this spider walk down the stairs. But it wasn't scary. It was just kind of like, ooh, that's kind of creepy. Like, I just don't get scared. I don't watch horror movies to get scared. I really do wish I could have a little bit of that sometimes. I do have one friend who she has like this childlike reaction to horror movies, and she acts in horror movies. And I think you guys actually interviewed her, Heather Harlow. I think she was one of your people.
No,
maybe not.
Not yet. I don't think.
But
we'll have to put her on the list.
Yeah, she does special effects and is an actress, but still, there are a lot of movies that she hasn't watched, even movies that she has watched. She gets like legit like creeped out, and I really like watching that. Like I envy that to a certain extent.
You experience it vicariously through her. Yeah, I am jealous of people like that. It's hard for something to scare me anymore. Maybe an uncomfortable feeling here and there, or like an unease if a movie is really good with tension and has that tone all the way through it. But I cannot remember the last time I actually jumped out of my seat and was scared by a movie.
Yeah, and I haven't been either. The only time that I can say, and this movie will always have a special place in my heart, I'm jumping ahead a little bit because I was an adult, when The Ring came out, the American Ring. Mm-hmm. And I had just had my baby, and she was just at the point where she could stay with grandma for a night. So, it's like my husband and I had like a date night. And I'm like, okay, there's this horror movie that came out. I'm going to go see it. Like I hadn't been to the theater forever. And I'm just like, I don't know what it's about. I don't care. I'm going to go see it. So I went and saw it, liked it, thought it was pretty cool. But then I went home, we hung out and everything. And then later that night, in the middle of the night, I had to get up and go to the bathroom. And in my, like where my bathroom was, I had to walk through a hallway. And so I started walking through the hallway, and I turned to my right, and I did not even like realize it until that mirror that the mom is brushing her hair in, and like Samara comes up behind her. Like I have a mirror that looks almost exactly like that. It was hanging on the wall, and like all of a sudden, like my heart skipped a beat, and I was like, "Oh my god, that movie got to me!" And like now I watch it, and it's so dated. The CGI is so dated. Yeah. But like I still have this really warm feeling about that movie because it actually gave me a legit sense of creeped out, even if it was just for a second when I turned to that mirror,
So it's interesting that you say that, because I guess I didn't really pick up on that. So you're saying that even when you were a kid, you were never actually scared of any of those things?
When I was a kid, like I would say when I was like 10, 11 and prior, yes, I was scared pretty much shitless. And then I started watching them with other people, and then I just really liked them. And then, we kind of started like, riffing on them and that kind of thing, making fun of some of the stuff. And then that's where it went. And then I just wasn't scared anymore.
Got it. Okay. Let's see. You mentioned Exorcist. Did you see that as an adult or a teen?
I mean, I saw it when I was a teenager. I can't pinpoint the first time I ever saw it. It really wasn't one that stands out as something that was definitive in my mind. I mean, certainly a great movie, and a movie that I revisit, every so often, but not one of the ones in my formative years, I guess.
Gotcha.
Like I'm kind of picking off like the ones that I just, when I think back to those ages, the ones that come to mind.
Right. No, that's fine. I think we've asked all the questions already from the teenage years. I'm just looking through real quick. Okay, so adult years, you mentioned The Ring. What else would you qualify as maybe like top 3?
I watch a lot of movies. As far as like 2000s or like things that I remember. Yeah, The Ring, I remember that one. Then I started watching a lot more movies in the theater because, I was older and whatnot. And I saw some of the bigger budget movies. They started to get a little bit better in the 2000s, but I still was more likely to rent horror movies. Late 90s, early 2000s, I was a big fan of going to Blockbuster and getting whatever Asian horror that they had, which was a mixed bag at the time. Like, that Dimension Asian Extreme line that they had there. Mm-hmm. You could pick up some really great ones. You could pick up some really crap ones. But I did rent Uzumaki and the first Tomie movie. Mm-hmm. And after I rented those two, I was like, I sight unseen, I don't care. It was almost like I was a kid again, like when I would just like pick up just anything that looked like it was a bloody camp slasher. Now I'm like, I'll pick up anything Asian. I don't care.
Fan for life.
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Chris's cat is named Uzumaki. By the way.
Nice. My daughter. Once my daughter was probably like 13 or something, and I'm like, I introduced her to that movie, and she, like, after that, like, she got super into Junji Ito and had to get all the books, and you know, and I was like, oh, look what I did. Parenting win,
doing it right.
Yes.
Yep.
Woo! But so and I still watch anything low budget. So like I started watching Peter Jackson, not Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson, goddammit, but like Dead Alive, Bad Taste, Meet the Feebles. I'd never seen those before. I think I started picking up some of the Todd Sheets stuff, like a Goblin and that type of stuff. Probably a lot more of the shot on video from the 90s, which I'm still like rediscovering because I was really big onto it in the 80s, and I kind of missed this kind of window of classic shot on video.
So hang on. Rather than just, you know, making a laundry list of all the cool things that you've seen, if I were to say, you know, give me the top 3 that you felt you had a strong emotional reaction to, what would those 3 be?
Movie. Okay. This is so hard. Like, I watch a lot of movies. One movie that I absolutely adored and still do is Cabin in the Woods.
Okay.
The Evil Dead remake, re-envisioning, sequel, whatever that was. I really dug that. I saw that one in the theater. I do remember when House of a Thousand Corpses came out. So when I heard that Rob Zombie was going to make a horror movie, I was like, this is it. This is it. This is the Renaissance. This is the start of something completely new. Rob Zombie is going to make a freaking horror movie. Yeah. And it is going to be so good. Yeah. And then, you know, like however long time it took for them to do it. So then I went to see it. I think I actually skipped out of work to go see it. You know, and the opening comes on, and it's just like, you know, kick-ass rockabilly, and like I was like, oh, this. I'm like strapped in. I'm ready to go. I'm settled. And like, there's something about the last third of that movie with the Dr. Satan crap that even still now, the first 2/3 of that movie were like everything I ever wanted. And then when it gets to like going underground with Dr. Satan, it still loses me. Like I've watched it 1,000 times, and, you know, done podcasts and, you know, and reviews and that kind of thing. So I can kind of do a 2-minute recap. That still kind of loses me. But if I look back, that movie was, I mean, that was huge. It was everything. Like it really did change things. I was kind of right. And another one, this sounds stupid, but House on Haunted Hill from 1999.
Okay.
It's not one I watch very often, but it is one I watched in the theater, and it was Halloween, you know, when they were releasing all those Dark Castle movies, like every year at Halloween, you know, packed theater, and like the beginning where, you know, it's like filmed in like kind of a sepia tone, and you've got all those insane people like take over the asylum, and they just jam that big wad of pencils and the doctor's neck and everything. I was like, yeah. And then the other one from that same general time period that, again, the end kind of lost me and still to this day loses me a little bit. But Jeepers Creepers.
The first one?
Yes. When I watched that in the theater, again, sight unseen, had no idea what it was. The beginning of it feels very Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It does.
Very like realistic. And still I'm just like, oh my God. Like, these kids are in this like old car that gets like a mile to a gallon. Don't go down that road, you know?
It'll be fine. It's fine.
Yeah. But when it became a creature, I was like, what? Mm-hmm. And now I've come to accept that it's a creature, although I do still watch it and think, like, how the hell did he get a vanity plate from the DMV?
Yeah. Be eating you.
Like, I mean, I'm all about suspension of disbelief. I really am. Mm-hmm. But like, you know, that still to me is like, because it made it seem personal and real that he had a vanity plate and they were playing their little bumper sumper game trying to guess what it said. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, it's beating you. It's beating you. And it's like the fact that he like, yeah, what did he do? Put on like a hoodie and go, yes, I need to register my crap 1927 Chevrolet truck. Be eating you for the license plate, please. But I still do like that movie. So there are a few.
Okay, yeah.
I guess that was like my pop quiz kind of thing.
Yeah, it's top of the head. That works.
So going back to the top of the list and running down then. So Uzumaki, what was your emotional reaction to that one?
Oh my God. I was like,
fuck, right? Like,
I know. I was like, this is, I mean, because it's done so comic style. There's just a lot of like really tight shots onto characters' faces, a lot of really weird, emotional, really like emotional looks on these people's faces, and things happening, and like the people not reacting in a natural way. Like, it's just so out there. I was like, this is batshit crazy. I love it.
Mhm.
Like, it was the whole thing of like, okay, first of all, finally somebody's doing something different. Once you get people who are making something like really good, there's going to be a million knockoffs, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, it wasn't a slam dunk, but it was kind of opening my eyes that like, hey, maybe people are starting to have some different ideas, doing things just a little differently and giving us something new. So there was a feeling of optimism there. You want an emotion. I had a feeling of optimism that we were coming out of this dry spell of crap.
I'm glad that you brought it back to that, because I'm sitting in there thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, where's the...
Give me an emotion, Rebecca. Give me an emotion. But I was highly entertained. And I mean, entertained not in a way of like, ooh, more blood, but like entertained in a way of like, wow,
Being entertained. Yeah.
Being entertained in a different way, but by the same genre, just a different subgenre.
Well, so the optimism that you're talking about, though, when I think about that almost seems like meta commentary to me, because it sounded like you were saying you're optimistic about what it was going to do for this genre, not necessarily optimism about what's in the movie itself. Does that make sense?
Right. But yes, optimism about, hey, horror is kind of turning back around. We're kind of, we're getting more to, just like I was saying with House of a Thousand Corpses.
Turning back around to what?
To something that I wanted to watch. Something that was good. Something that I felt like people were making original things. And I think, like I said, House of a Thousand Corpses, whereas I had a little bit of problem when I walked out of the theater, it still did. It kind of said to me, okay, things are going to change. The emotion was excitement. It was excitement. It was brain candy. That's not an emotion.
Brain candy.
Brain candy. Stimulation for the brain.
Yeah.
There. That's kind of an emotion. Man, I need a thesaurus right now.
I know, right?
Right. What about Cabin in the Woods?
It makes fun of fans of that genre without being mean. Some parodies can get downright mean and just basically stare at you and be like, you know what, you like the original movies that this is all based on? You're stupid. You're dumb for liking them. We like these movies too, and this is why we think they're absolutely ridiculous, and this is why we like them, and this is why we're going to put these jokes in. It was people who I could tell felt the same way about these movies as I did.
Right.
And so it ends up being sharp, and like I won't, like, if anybody hasn't seen that movie, you've got to see that movie. But just the whole like sub layer, like, I mean, it ended up having like basically like 4 different like layers to it, and it was just like, and they were all good.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think I did see that one, and that, like you say, it was fans of the genre making fun of the genre. So
right, because it's different. Like, if I'm teasing,
inside jokes.
If I tease my best friend and I go, "You bitch," it's funny. If some random person walks up to her and goes, "You bitch," it ain't so funny. Like, right. It's just it's a different, like, knowing who it came from and who it's going to.
Right.
It's the implication.
Right.
What about the Evil Dead remake?
We were having a lot of remakes and that type of thing at the time. I really like that. It's one I need to watch again. I went to see it by myself in a time when I was really trying to become autonomous. My marriage was like shit, and I just wanted to be my own person, and I was having trouble doing that. And like, I had one night where like nobody was home, and I'm like, I'm going to go watch this movie. So there's a little bit of that empowerment right there to go with that. Evil Dead, the original Evil Dead, is one of my favorite movies of all times.
Yeah. And
there's something about Jane Levy's character and the way that they turned it with the drug kind of arc. Yeah. Like, oh, is she on drugs? Or, they can't really trust her because she's not been trustworthy, and her trying to get them to believe her, eyeball slicing, all that jazz. I just thought it was really, really tight.
But I mean, I guess the strongest feeling I got of that one from you was in the empowerment, but that was, I guess, like you're saying, more empowerment in that you were able to go see it on your own terms.
Yeah, but then also, it was good to see her undoing a lot of the bad things she'd done to try to, like, she actually, she was pulling herself up by the bootstraps, essentially. Like, she had been on this really reckless path. Nobody really, these people cared if she died, but they wouldn't have been surprised if she died by her own hand. And then suddenly when it comes down to it and it's something else trying to challenge her, she finally gets her head out of her butt. And like, she's like, okay, I'm going to defeat this. Mm-hmm. And so again, there's that empowerment as well.
Okay. For House of a Thousand Corpses, you mentioned the first 2/3 were pretty good. What did you like about those?
I liked how just fast paced. I liked the bad humor and potty mouth and loved baby and how uncomfortable their house is and just how gross everything was. And I love the murder ride. Like, I totally would have done what those kids were doing, except for the one girlfriend who looked like she smelled a fart the whole time. She was like so poo-poo on this whole like roadside attraction thing. I was like, oh my God, I wish I was like his girlfriend. I'd go on these freaking roadside attraction trips.
Right.
That sounds awesome to me. I'd do that right now.
Mm-mm. What was uncomfortable about the house?
It was just so like the people were just so weird. But it's like baby was so hot and the guys were so enwrapped by her that they felt it. It was comical, obviously. It was that they felt it, but they were like, but she's hot.
Yeah,
so
it's like, I know this is
bad.
a trap, but she's hot.
Yeah, she's hot. It can't be that bad. And then, then at that point, the girlfriends had the total right to be like, you are stupid. Yeah. No, we're going to die here. Yeah. So I like that kind of that playfulness and dichotomy of it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. House on the Haunted Hill. You mentioned there's that one scene with pencils on the neck. You were really excited about that. What excited you about that?
With that one, I just like the feel. Like, I kind of like old school. I like it when there's like a history of something weird happening and they show you, but it's not necessarily like, oh, somebody got murdered in this house. Like, the house was super cool. And I really loved Jeffrey Rush and I'm going to say her name wrong, Famke Johnson.
No, you got it.
I love the way like their like sharp dialogue between the two of them. I really dug that. And you throw in the Marilyn Manson Sweet Dreams and and it had some points that now if you watch it, it's a little goofy, but it really it did capture that whole William Castle like experience, like as close as we're gonna get.
Atmosphere.
Yeah, there was a lot of atmosphere and a lot of good dialogue, a lot of things that maybe wouldn't scare you, but were pretty creepy.
So again, still no Halloween costumes and participation in that as an adult, I assume.
No, the closest I've come is I actually cosplayed a couple times at horror conventions. I do have a YouTube channel that I did a whole series. It's not quite Final Girl. I did a whole series on girls that don't get the recognition that the final girls get in movies. Some of the lesser known ones. So
yeah, like what's her face with the mohawk and the knives and Freddy?
Yes, I did. I did that. Yes, mm-hmm.
Taryn, thank you.
Taryn, yes, I did. Linda from The Evil Dead. I did Baby from House of a Thousand Corpses because it's not necessarily that they don't die. That's kind of how it started. Like the girls in the slashers that died, and so nobody talks about them. Then it got to you're kind of unlikely, like she was more of like an anti-hero kind of thing. Like she was the antagonist, but you really liked her. That kind of thing. Yeah, I started with, who did I start with? I did, I was taking requests for a while. I did, I can't think of her name. The bitchy girl from prom night. Can't think of her name. Wendy, was that her name in the movie?
It's been a while since I've seen prom night.
So I did these like really elaborate videos and a lot of them involved cosplay. I would kind of dress up like the people. I did Violet from Friday the 13th Part 5 and actually did my hair with she was the one who was kind of the punk / new wave girl, like the crimped hair. Like I did my hair like that and stuff. And the actress actually like reached out to me, Tiffany Helm. That was probably the first time I had anybody like actually notice what I did. Like somebody, like.
I'm tempted to go look that up just because I want to see you.
Oh my God. I was so good. I used like 3 cans of that hairspray that makes your hair a different color. Aquanet? No, the kind that makes your hair a different color. Yeah. It might as well have been Aquanet. Right. Trust me. Yeah. Oof, that was hard to get out of my hair.
Did you enjoy the process of that? Or?
Yeah. I did have a lot more time back then. They were, I think I ended up doing like 12 or 14 of them. They took a long time because there was a lot of research. I actually did research on all the, the actresses and like, where are they now? And just kind of their whole story. And where it kind of came from was I realized I watched these movies where there's like a person who's on screen for like 15 minutes or whatever. But I've seen the movie so many times that I've kind of built their whole backstory in my head. And so I just wanted to get in depth with them. Allie from Sleepaway Camp, Sleepaway Camp 2, she was one that I did because I felt like I knew so much more about her than was let on in the movie.
Let's see. I guess in your adult years then, had you found a group of friends that also enjoy horror or no?
Yeah. So I guess this is my third act right here. So finally got out of my marriage that was just wrecking everything. And as soon as he left, I got all my horror crap out of boxes, hung it all up, because it'd all been just, I was going to horror conventions and getting signatures and like buying posters and everything else, and they were just going to storage. And while I had been cute at one point, like, oh, it's cute you like these horror movies. By the end, it was like, you're not going to make me watch a dumb horror movie, right? So, it had gone that whole gamut. And I actually had found a group of people on Facebook who were super into horror. I was an admin of this really large group that ended up being like a smallpox blanket. Like, it was terrible. It was just like babysitting like 20,000 idiots. But I did like find people like me, and I did realize that I could go places and actually see these people, or like I've met people that I know online, and there are people who I know online I've known for years. I've never met them in person. It doesn't matter. They're still my friends. And now I pretty much exclusively that's pretty much all that I do on social media is horror stuff, promotion. And I've been fortunate to get into movies myself and actually go places and work with cool people and make new friends. And I have people that, because of my movie here, I've met a lot of people who are very awesome and with the film industry here in Indiana. So be on the lookout for us, man. We're hoping Indiana's going to blow up like in the next few years.
It's going to be the new Hollywood.
No, I don't want it to be in Hollywood.
I know, I said that sarcastically.
Yeah. Right. We want to be able to make movies without having to do day jobs. That's it. Okay. No Hollywood.
Right. I mean, who doesn't, right?
Right.
Definitely good having a good social group to be a part of.
Yeah.
Let's see. So you mentioned for scary dreams for adulthood, real life stress.
Anxiety of, just not making deadlines and not doing stuff right and paying bills and all that
which
crap.
Is normal.
Yeah. So
nothing out of the ordinary there.
No.
And I think when we asked earlier if anything in real life traumatic had happened to you, I think you had even said not in your adult life either, right?
Yeah. I mean, nothing terrible.
Okay. So the next couple questions are going to be not just related to horror, but all any genre, and also not related to any specific time in your life. We're going to cover your whole life now.
Oh my God. Okay.
The first 2 questions I'll give you at the same time because they could be the same answer or different answers, depending. And we already know the answer to one of these. The first 2 questions would be, what are your favorite movie of all time? And what movie would you say you've watched more times than any other? For favorite movie, you said tie between Sleepaway Camp 2 and one of the Friday the
13th Part 2, which also are probably two of the movies I've watched the most. So let's branch out here. So if I have to branch out beyond horror, Young Frankenstein. Oh, I guess it's a horror comedy. But that is a movie that I quote in my everyday life. Airplane is another one.
Nice.
That fits both of those categories.
I don't know how many times I've told friends this quote and no one ever gets it. We will go to my house for cake and punch and shit.
I'm usually doing like a Frau Blücher.
Oh, yeah.
He was my boyfriend.
Yes. R.I.P. Chorus.
Oh, now I'm totally spacing out. I do like movies other than horror movies, but those are probably like my absolute favorites. I'm trying to think of like something that's not like a slapstick comedy though. So I'm kind of shut up. My boyfriend just walked in and he goes, Titanic.
No, we covered that. You haven't even seen it intentionally.
I've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
I sat through it.
Oh, wow.
I did a drunken commentary on that.
Oh,
movie.
okay. If you're gonna watch it, that is the way to do it. You know what? I have never seen Titanic, but I might do that. I might just get really shit-faced drunk, record it, and watch Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
And do riff tracks. It'll be fun.
There you go. Yep, and that's exactly what I do, and I did it for that.
What movie would you say you've watched more times than any other?
So I have this concept of people will talk about I don't even remember what it is. Like they'll talk about movies on an island or something. And
Desert Island movies.
Yes, right. So like if I could bring one movie with me, what would I bring? My idea of the deserted island movies are these are the movies I would not bring with me because I could stand there and act out the entire movie myself. And those would be probably Sleepaway Camp 2, Friday the 13th, 1 through 4. Yeah, probably Young Frankenstein would be one. I'm trying to think of something different. Dirty Dancing. I don't know why. I used to watch that movie and I can still recite it when it comes on. I'm like, woof. Wow. I can't remember to pay my car payment, but I can remember Dirty Dancing.
What'd you like about that one?
I just used to watch it a lot when I was a kid. I watched it with my mom, and I don't know. I liked that she was defiant against her parents and social norms. There's a certain pattern going on here, kids.
Empowerment.
Yeah, there's a certain thing that goes on in my head.
And rebellion.
Yeah.
So if we were to, well, we kind of already answered this one too, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you see any common threads about what kind of horror you like? Cannibalism, occult, metaphysical, camp slashers?
So if I have to go beyond camp slashers, I set that out there. Rape Revenge is another one.
Oh, that's right. You did mention that.
Rape Revenge is another big one. I am not across the board on any other subgenre. So werewolves, vampires, zombies. I like movies in those genres, but they're not slam dunks for me. 80s slashers are probably like the one that if I had to pick a genre to watch for the rest of my life, it would be that.
So if we focus on camp slashers and Rape Revenge, and we ask any idea why you like those things, I think I know what the answer would be, but let's hear what you have to say.
I mean, if you have to, you're going to make the obvious correlation, and it's sisters are doing it for themselves. Like, I mean, my favorite final girl is Ginny from Part 2 because she goes into the movie with a set of skills. She's a counselor, camp counselor, so she knows archery and how to use a chainsaw and things that maybe like your average little bubblegum chewing girl doesn't know. But she's a graduate student, and in the end, yes, she does. She uses things that have been set out that we know that she already knows how to do. She's not able to push this guy, this 6'5" dude across the room.
There are no miracles happening.
Right. These are all things that she's capable of doing. And in the end, she uses her education and her brains. Yes, thank you. She uses child psychology. Anytime I can see people use their actual degree, in real life, I'm all like, yay, you. Just from a personal perspective. But I think that's what it is. It's about, I identify with the woman who says, screw it, I am going to do it myself. I do it myself, because that's how I've gotten to every point, every milestone I've made in my life. That's how I've done it. is I just said, you know what, I might have a support system. I might have people that are behind me, but you know what? I know it doesn't really matter because it all has to come from me. And I think that's why those two really resonate with me.
Right. Yeah. The two things I was going to say were empowerment, obviously, but also fun. You've mentioned a lot of excitement. So then the question is, why horror? Because can't you find empowerment and fun in other genres?
Yeah, I mean, this question obviously is something I've been asked before and something that I think about. I don't know. There's something about horror. I use the word comfort movies, just like comfort food. Like, I mean, I had a bad day. I'm just gonna put Sleepaway Camp on. And
I've had a bad day. I want to watch somebody else get murdered and get shit on. You know?
Right. It's not even that. It's like I hit play on one of these. It's like, wow, I think I'm just going to fall asleep to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, it's just something like there's something in my brain. It triggers something in my brain that just goes, But I will say that part of what I love about horror now that I'm older is I do love the community. So everybody kind of thinks that horror fans are maybe subversive in a way, violent even. They got something wrong with them. Usually it's kind of we're on the outskirts of society. You go to a horror convention and you've got everybody from rich preppy people to like fat dumpy people and, the whole gamut, all the way in between. And they all just have come there out of the same thing. They all just really love this genre. And there's a very much of a kumbaya kind of thing. Like, hands across America, everybody, it's like, and so it's comforting to know that there are other people who find that. So I don't think that I'm weird in that way. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but
well, to go back to the comfort movie thing that you mentioned, I mean, that's not necessarily uncommon either. The analogy that I like to use for something like this is music, because as we age, or to say it a different way, when we're younger, we emotionally attach to certain songs that trigger certain emotions. And then as we age, we might hear a song that's really good that might touch on a similar emotion, but it doesn't necessarily connect with us the same way because we've already got a song assigned to that emotion in our brains.
Right.
And our hearts. And so, yeah, you might get empowerment out of some other genre, but it may not really hit the same because you've already got an association.
Right. And people like to throw around the term nostalgia, which I think especially with the 80s, people really like to put that term in there. And I do think that's part of it, but it's not nostalgia like nostalgia for the 80s kind of thing. I think it's or maybe a nostalgia for a different time. But yes, a nostalgia for maybe I was having a rough go of things, and I watched this movie and I forgot, or it made me feel better, or it gave me perspective. I mean, it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to love highbrow movies all the time. You don't have to sit there and watch like I'm gonna go watch a Kurosawa movie when I'm need enlightenment. And you know what? Sometimes dumbass slashers can give you the same thing.
So sort of last question here is, considering the theme of the podcast, is there anything relevant that you're aware of that we haven't asked about?
No, I'm a dork. I'm a horror dork. And if you walked in my house, you would know it. I also do, as another thing that I picked up from my childhood, or I picked back up from my childhood, I actually collect Barbies. Huh. So when people walk in my house, they're a little put off by...
Do you mutilate them?
No, I have done a couple custom ones, and I do have...
I like that you had to think about that though for a minute.
Now, and I do have one that I got a custom from a guy named Will Turner who does custom horror Barbies. He's super awesome. But it's Mark from Friday the 13th Part 2, the guy in the wheelchair. And he's got he's got the machete in his head. So it's like my perfect blend of my two things. But yeah, it's a little off-putting. Sometimes when people come in, they see all these fluffy Barbies, with like these big pink dresses, and then it's like, oh, and then there's Dead Alive on your wall.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
it's okay.
It's like Peter Jackson himself, you got...
Hey, I like to say that I'm a well-rounded person.
Yeah.
Well, they're not seeing the connection between the two, which empowerment would also be a good connection between both Barbie and horror.
And that's another thing too. I grew up in the 80s, and Barbie was usually under, she was under the microscope, for how like she looked and all this other stuff. But when I look back, I'm like, no, my Barbies were always like, my Barbies always had jobs. They were always like fashion magazine editors or lawyers, and they always lived with their friends. Like they always had like, an apartment where they all like lived with their girlfriends, and like maybe they go out on a date, like I already had that in my head. Like Barbie,
no one's saying that Barbie had to be a stay-at-home mother.
The whole thing, like we girls can do anything. Like I took that to heart. I didn't look at that Barbie had like a 10-inch waist. That wasn't my takeaway. My takeaway is that Barbie did what the fuck she wanted, and her boyfriend was lame. She kept him around, just in case. But he was so like superfluous to her life.
I mean, Ken was
your
lame.
Boyfriend's in the other room listening.
Yeah. Ken, if you're listening, I think you're lame, but that's okay. You haven't been cool since the 70s. Sorry.
Oh. Okay, so if we were to wrap up the call and summarize for you, like I said, probably the two things that
this is my analysis right here.
Yes.
Give it to me.
Well, we've already said it. Empowerment and fun.
Yeah. I think empowerment, fun, and passion.
Yeah,
that's in there too. That was a good one. So, I mean, do you want to pitch anything on the way out, or we talked about creating a bio for you and linking? We can do that. Well, we're going to do that either way.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm here all day. I've been pitching my stuff all night, but yeah. I do a podcast that most of the people who listen to this might be interested in, called the Slumber Party Massacre podcast.
Ooh.
And we have a Facebook group that's fairly active. It is 5 girls who we always were the token girl on horror podcasts. And this is something that doesn't get brought up a lot, but like when you're a horror fan and you're just like in the general populace, you feel like an outsider. Okay, then when you're a girl and you're with horror boys, you always have to be a little smarter. You have to know like the second AD on every movie. You're constantly being challenged, and you constantly like there's this perception that if you're a horror fan and you're a girl, that you're doing it to impress guys somehow. And so, and this isn't a slam against any of our male podcast co-hosts, but we all had that same sentiment. Like, man, like, why do we always have to prove ourselves? Why do we always have to like yell for guys to listen to us? Like, why do people question that we actually like this stuff? Like, why the hell would we be doing this if we didn't? And so the 5 of us got together and made an all-female podcast so that we can just be like, penises out. We're going to talk about what we want. And it's been fabulous. We just celebrated our 1st year anniversary.
Congratulations. Congrats.
It's fun.
We just celebrated our 2nd year this
month.
Well,
congratulations.
Thank you. I feel like we should invite the other 4 on here and put you guys front and center.
I can send you their info, or I'll send you a link to our podcast, because we are we vary greatly in age, experience, and we really like. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I mean we really have a really good dynamic and a really wide range of perspective and knowledge, and it really has. We do it once a month. And our average show is like 4 hours long, because we just talk that much. And it's refreshing, like to just be able to talk. Yeah, it's just refreshing to be able to talk and do our thing. Oh, we have like segments. It's a slumber party. We do girl talk and pillow fight and our feature presentation. So.
I knew it.
Nice. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, and thank you to anybody out there listening. Please do come visit us over at horrormakesushappy.com. We've got links to our social media and Patreon and merch and all kinds of fun stuff. But mainly the best thing you can do if you like this is tell a friend.